Finding random frames in Dune Part 2 until it's ugly. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this movie is way above my head in terms of cinematography, but I'll try my best. 1, 2, 3. Absolutely gorgeous shot. I love it when cinematographers aren't afraid to use highlights in unique and interesting ways. Like here you can see she has a nice highlight on the lower half of her body. I don't usually see that in frames, but this is really nice because it provides contrast. First of all, it provides contrast from this part of the image to this part of the image, but it's also providing a bit of bounce light on her face because the light is hitting her clothes and then bouncing up a little bit. And also this light is very motivated. It makes sense in the area that this character is in. She's in some kind of a cave-like area. I'm not sure exactly where in this situation, but you wouldn't expect lights in this cave. What you would expect though is maybe there is a hole in the ceiling of this cave and the sun is just shining through it and bouncing off of the ground and lighting the face. And that's one thing amateur cinematographers always have to keep in mind. That is like one of the first things they need to think about when they are on set is the motivation of the light. Where is the light coming from and does it make sense in that specific scenario? So definitely not an ugly shot. Let's go towards the beginning. 1, 2, 3. Great close-up of Timmy. Again, we see nicely motivated lighting. It might seem obvious at first. You have the sun over here that is shining directly at him. But what's cool about this shot is the fill light. Anyone can take an actor and go out into the sun and just have the sun shine directly on them. But most of you who try to do that won't make a good-looking shot out of it because you don't know what you're doing. However, the DP, Greig Fraser, does in fact know what he's doing. And so when he takes an actor out into the sun, he knows to backlight them with the sun. The sun is hitting primarily the back of Timmy right here. And then he is filling in the face over here on this side with a more cool bounce or something like that. However, what's really cool about this shot is the fill light on the opposite side of the face. And that is because it is contrasting with the fill light on the right side of the face. It is more of an orange color compared to the right side of his face. And this creates the typical, kind of blue and teal contrast palette you might see in action movies like Transformers, except for a lot more muted. And the reason this works is because these are complementary colors. But again, it is motivated. You have to ask yourself, why would there be an orange light in this situation? Well, in real life, the sun would be bouncing off of the sand and then reflecting back onto his face. And what color is sand? Sand is more orangish. And so it makes sense. It might not look exactly like this in real life, but it makes sense. It is motivated. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great over the shoulder shot here. We got Timmy just looking at Zendaya. Okay, so not ugly. 1, 2, 3. That's an incredibly cool shot as well. So again, we have a lighting style that's kind of like a Robert Richardson kind of lighting style where you just blast a light very hard and very harsh down into the ground and possibly even overexposing the image in this area. And it is overexposing this image, but the result of that is that the light bounces off of the ground and kind of lights the rest of the scenes. Don't be afraid to overexpose certain areas in the frame if it makes the other areas and it makes the overall contrast look cool. Not ugly. Let's go towards the beginning. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is a very different shot than what we've seen so far. Now, you might think that the way they achieved this color was in post, in color grading, and that they just took a raw image and added orange to it, but that's actually not what they did. They actually went the more expensive and complicated way. It actually wasn't that much more expensive, but what they did was they used a variable IR filter, which allowed them to filter out the green and blue light of this image, so all you're seeing is the orange and red light. It's actually the opposite of a filter we talked about in the episode of this series where we went over the lighthouse, where they wanted a orthochromatic look, which meant that they filtered out all of the orange and red light. Well, this is the opposite. Instead of filtering out the orange and red light, they are filtering out the green and blue light. So you can do whatever you want. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, gorgeous shot of Rebecca Ferguson being very softly lit. This is very similar to the shot we saw earlier. The only other thing I'll say is that I love what they did with the eyes here. I'm pretty sure this is a mix of VFX and color grading. It's not, I don't think they wore contacts because if you can see, the whites of their eyes are actually blue as well. And if you wore contacts, that wouldn't happen. Your eye whites would still be white, I believe. But it's also a very kind of almost unnatural looking color in this lighting. It's almost too bright of a color blue for this lighting, in my opinion. But I mean, it looks cool, so can't fault it. Okay, let's go towards the middle. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is a cool shot to talk about. So the first thing I noticed about this shot was how bright his skin tones are because he is in shadow right here. All of this is in shadow and then the sunlight is coming from over here. And he looks too bright for me. I know they probably painted him with white makeup and everything, but he still looks incredibly white and bright. And I think the reason for that is that this entire scene is actually an infrared image. And the way they achieved this is very interesting because they used Arri Alexa Mini and Arri Alexa LF cameras and removed the infrared filter from the sensor sensor. So a lot of cameras will have an infrared filter built into their sensor so you don't get infrared bleed on the image, and it just looks better with the filter. But they took that out so that the camera could see all of the infrared wavelengths of the light spectrum, and then they put an 87C filter on the lens that filtered out all of the visible wavelengths of the light spectrum, so that the resulting image is just the infrared wavelengths. And not only do I think this scene looks cool, but it does have a story motivation. You see, this scene takes place on the Harkonnen home planet Giedi Prime. I don't know if I'm saying that right, forgive me, I don't know much about Dune, but it takes place on a different planet than the rest of the images we have been seeing with Timothée Chalamet, and that gave the director and the DP an opportunity to explore something new, and what they explored was that the sunlight on this particular planet didn't have any of the visible light spectrum. It only had infrared image light. And so the sunlight of this planet looks black and white, but when we go inside on this same planet and they're using artificial lights, that's when we introduce the color and the visible light spectrum. If I can just find a shot of inside, I'll show you. See, outside it looks like this, outside, and then inside, here we go, it has color. Not much color because all of their set design and they just paint all their objects black, but you can see that there is color in their skin tones here, and it's not just a black and white image. Also, this set is a very cool one to talk about, which I will do now. But first of all, I want to draw your attention to a great resource I found on the American Cinematographer website, and that is actually a production book created by the DP Greig Fraser himself. It's called Dune Part 2 Post-Filming Documentation. And if I just scroll through this, you'll see that there are just a lot of behind-the-scenes photos of the sets they used for Dune 2, and also a lot of lighting plots. You can see the lights here, and you can see the lighting plots over here. They're very detailed. They used a lot of lights. It's extremely interesting. And we are going to find one of these BTS photos right here, the Giedi Prime. Is it called Giedi Prime? The Giedi Prime private room with all of these slots, which we just saw. We're going to take a look at this. Because what you can see from this photo of outside of the set, what they did was they primarily just had a ton of lights above the set and below the set, bouncing off of this giant silk, this giant white piece of fabric. And then that light was bouncing through these cracks in the set. So that's ultimately what you're seeing here, is the silk outside of the window, the light bouncing off of the silk and then barely coming in and lighting a kind of dark image, but a very soft image. And it's very nice. It's a very nice image. What can I say? But it's one that took a lot of lights and a lot of work. Not one that I could replicate on any low budget film of mine. So definitely not ugly. Let's go towards the end. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's cool. I like the shapes of this shot especially. So yeah, it looks cool. All of these concentric circles extruding out from the middle and up here as well. Just gives it a nice pattern and shape. But also we have a very soft light coming from above, and I think that this is what he used to light this set with. He apparently used this circular softbox that he invented with all of these flags parading out from the middle of it, so that he had control over the entire area. He could like turn lights off on this outer circle if he wanted, or turn lights off on the inner circle if he wanted, depending on where people were sitting in the scene. I think it's cool. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but like I said, this movie is completely over my pay grade. But you can see right here that the middle part is like a little bit hotter than the part around it. This isn't the exact set that we were looking at, but I think he probably used the same kind of contraption for the one we were looking at. Okay, not ugly. Let's go here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's inappropriate. Aren't they related or something? Next shot. 1, 2, 3. Okay, better. This is actually another set that they mentioned in the document I showed you. Primarily, the light is coming from out here. So all of this, you can see, I believe, is CGI, but the lighting is not CGI. That's one thing that cinematographers have to remember nowadays, is that even though you see this out here and like, oh, that's CGI and nothing's real out there, no, it's not a green screen. They're lighting from this area. And the way they are lighting and the way that he is getting all of this light on his body and he's getting light over here is like this. So as you can see, you have the opening of the window right here. There's not actually a crowd out there, but you do have this giant silk that they're blasting light on from right here and up here, and they're just flooding this silk with light, and the light is bouncing in here and lighting the characters in the space. And if you want a more detailed breakdown, again, you have this lighting plot right here that tells you every single light that's on it, and it has an intricate blueprint of the set. Really cool. Okay, so not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, not an ugly shot. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. That's great framing for his face. I don't know if that's accidental or not, but great. 1, 2, 3. Okay, really cool. Very simple lighting. I guess primarily being lit by whatever that thing is. 1, 2, 3. I mean, ooh. I typically don't like when lens flares kind of wash out the image like this, but the color of this lens flare is just very nice to me. I don't know if something's being added in post here or not, but I love the red color of it. And it's actually kind of a very beautiful shot. Even I don't care if I'm being inconsistent with what I've said in the past. I like the shot. Okay, not ugly. 1, 2, 3. It's really cool. Lots of light pockets around the image that just creates contrast again and creates a nice image. I don't know what else you want me to say. Also, I love how the shafts of light are very distinguished. There are tons of different shafts of light. There's one right here, 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 one right here. And I'm assuming they just have a bunch of holes above here that they're blasting lights through, but they're also hazing up the environment, so it looks like dust. So overall, gorgeous. 1, 2, 3. Nice, soft, dark-looking shot of Timmy. I do think this movie can tend to get a little bit dark, but I think that's okay because of the environments that they're in. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I know I've said that explosions don't look very nice before, but this explosion kind of looks cool. 1, 2, 3. Great shot. 1, 2, 3. Great shot. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful shot. I love this. Is probably my favorite shot so far. Let me figure out where they shot this at. I don't even know where they shot this at. I'm just curious. Okay, so Screen Rant says that the desert shots were shot in Jordan and the United Arab Emirates, which is really cool. You know, that means that all of this back here is not a green screen. It's not a volume LED screen. It is a actual piece of the real world, which I love about these filmmakers. They want it to be honest. They want it to feel grounded in reality. You know, I wish I had that much money. I wish I had money to go and fly halfway across the world to go shoot in a desert like this, but I don't. Next shot. 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think we found it, boys. So here's the context for the shot. It's when he is about to ride on the sandworm and he just gets swept up into the dusty dust. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad shot. I'm not saying it's an inappropriate shot. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be in the film. It's a great shot and it needs to be in the film because it gives the audience a sense of being there. It engrosses the audience in riding the sandworm. But what I am saying is that I wouldn't frame this on my wall. If I took a picture of this out of my wallet and showed it to you on the street and asked, do you think this is a pretty shot? You would say no. It's about isolation, and that's just the rules of the game. And quite honestly, I'm glad to be done with this movie because it is, again, over my head, and I don't think I did it a very good job. There's a lot more here. There's a lot more to talk about that I can't wrap my brain around, quite honestly, but there are a lot of resources out there online, especially on American Cinematographer, and there are tons of interviews with the DP Greig Fraser himself talking about his decision-making and why he chose certain things. And I encourage you to go look at it because it will only make you a better filmmaker and cinematographer. So please let me know in the comments which film you want me to do this for next. Hopefully it's not one as complicated, but like and subscribe and all that. I love you. Goodbye.